Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at washingtech.com/book. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Before we get into your headlines, we have special remarks today. Actually, this is the first time we have remarks on the podcast from a high-ranking federal official, so it's a pretty exciting day here. The remarks are from Congressman Bobby Scott, a Democrat from the 3rd Congressional District of Virginia, who is the ranking member of the House Education and Workforce Committee. A few weeks ago, Congressman Scott released a statement about the new report the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission released, showing extremely poor representation of minorities and women in the tech sector. Congressman Scott has the distinction of being the first African-American elected to Congress from the Commonwealth of Virginia since Reconstruction, and only the second African-American elected to Congress in Virginia's history. Having a maternal grandfather of Filipino ancestry also gives him the distinction of being the first American with Filipino ancestry to serve as a voting member of Congress. Congressman Scott is also a recognized champion of the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and has fought to protect the rights and civil liberties of all Americans. In 1997, he protected the right of all children with disabilities to obtain a free and appropriate education under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, by leading a successful effort to defeat amendments aimed at curtailing that right for some children. Congressman Scott has also actively opposed passage of the USA Patriot Act and has been a leading critic of both Republican and Democratic administration's misuse of surveillance authorities. He's also a leading opponent of efforts to permit employment discrimination in federally funded programs. He is a leading advocate for improving and increasing funding for veterans benefits and health care, especially mental health care, and was the lead sponsor in the House of Senator Jim Webb's post-9/11 GI Bill that was signed into law by President George W. Bush in 2008. Congressman Scott has served in Congress since 1993 and is a graduate of Harvard College and Boston College Law School. Congressman Bobby Scott.
Thank you, Joe, for having me on your podcast regarding this important topic. Technology is important to our nation's economy. 25% of U.S. professionals are in occupations based on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, otherwise known as STEM jobs. The Bureau of Labor Statistics even reports that high-tech industry jobs are a major factor in the forecast of the economy and employment. But there have been numerous media reports detailing the lack of racial and gender diversity and overall hostile work environment in the tech sector. I serve as the ranking member of the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, and in that capacity, I asked the Government Accountability Office and the Office of Federal Contract and Compliance Programs to investigate and analyze the status of equal employment opportunities in the tech industry. I specifically asked the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, the EEOC, to conduct an in-depth analysis on race and gender representation in the high-tech sector nationally, with specific focus on Silicon Valley. The EEOC has the authority to do these studies under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and has done past examinations in other areas of employment. The EEOC issued the Diversity in Tech report in May, which used the tech company's own data, and here's what we learned. The sector is overwhelmingly white and male. Even though tech jobs provide higher pay, women earned 11 to 25% less than men. The argument that there is a shortage of qualified female and tech workers of color is not supported by the finding that almost 50% of STEM graduates in the United States are not hired in STEM-related fields, and that the United States actually produces more STEM graduates than there are jobs available. And so there are qualified candidates for these jobs, and lack of talent pool is not the issue. But the report noted that equal employment opportunities are not available. For example, when a high-tech firm adopted an anonymous interview that focused on skills, the callback rate for interviews for non-white candidates increased from 20% to 60%. The EEOC's report cites a body of research and personal experience of women and people of color in the STEM fields who are leaving in droves because of workplace bias and the climate. Now we know that Many in the top 75 ranked Silicon Valley firms had at least one federal contract in 2014. That's why I'm pressing the Office of Federal Contract and Compliance Programs to use its legal authority to conduct compliance evaluations and audits of these companies. After all, we're using taxpayer dollars to support these companies who do very important work for the government. Those companies should take affirmative actions to follow civil rights laws that prohibit workplace discrimination. Finally, I've asked for the Committee on Education and the Workforce to hold hearings on the findings of the EEOC report. I've also requested a comprehensive investigation by the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights regarding the role of the federal government in addressing the lack of racial and gender diversity in the tech industry.
Thank you, Congressman Scott, for all the great work you're doing.
Moving the needle. Welcome to the Washington Tech Policy Podcast.
Curating communications, media, and tech policy news so you don't have to. News, interviews, everything you need without the axe to grind. It's the Washington Tech Policy Podcast with Joe Miller.
The FBI begins to investigate the Orlando gunman's digital trail. BuzzFeed pulls out of its advertising deal with the Republican National Committee. And Ximena Hartsock is my guest. The FBI has begun investigating Orlando gunman Omar Mateen's digital trail. FBI Director James Comey would not disclose what type of device Mateen used, but several pictures show Mateen using a Samsung device. And most reports are saying Mateen used an Android device, and far fewer Android devices than Apple devices are encrypted. Another report from the LA Times said Mateen used the gay dating app Jacked as one of the witnesses of Sunday morning's mass shootings that left 50 dead and more than 50 wounded. Said he recognized Mateen from Jacked when he saw Mateen moments before Mateen unleashed the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. The LA Times and The Hill have more coverage. BuzzFeed is pulled out of its advertising deal with the Republican National Committee to run ads during the fall campaign season. BuzzFeed CEO Jonah Peretti said the company was pulling out because, quote, since signing this advertising deal, Donald Trump, as you know, has become the presumptive nominee of this party. The tone and substance of his campaign are unique in the history of modern U.S. politics. Trump advocates banning Muslims from traveling to the United States. He's threatened to limit the free press and made offensive statements toward women, immigrants, descendants of immigrants, and foreign nationals, end quote. Peretti said it is not accepting Trump for president ads for the exact same reason it doesn't accept cigarette ads, because they are hazardous to our health. HuffPost Media has more. The Wall Street Journal reported that several of the emails stored on Hillary Clinton's private email server were classified plans and communications with American diplomats in Islamabad discussing plans for future drone strikes in Pakistan. More at the Wall Street Journal. Google has lost its bid to prevent a class action lawsuit from proceeding against it that was brought by advertisers in California, claiming that Google failed to fully disclose where ads would be placed. The ads appeared next to search results, but also on undesirable pages like error pages and things like that. And the district court ruled the class action couldn't proceed because advertisers all spend different amounts of money, citing a Walmart Supreme Court decision from back in 2011 saying class action claimants' claims must be similar in order for class action lawsuits to proceed. But that opinion was written by the late Justice Antonin Scalia. So when the Google case came up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which overturned the lower court and said the case could proceed, Google went to the Supreme Court citing the Walmart opinion, asking the court to intervene. But the now 8-justice Supreme Court last week decided not to hear Google's appeal and allowed the class action to move forward despite the Walmart precedent. Reuters has full coverage. Congress has passed reforms to the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, 50 years after the law was first passed. The act is designed to allow the public, particularly the press, to gain access to government documents. The new changes require government officials to err on the side of disclosure. The Electronic Frontier Foundation wrote in a blog post, quote, "Under the bill, agencies cannot withhold records unless another law prohibits their disclosure or the agencies articulate how disclosure will harm an interest protected by FOIA's exemptions," end quote. Among the other changes, the bill also creates a way for individuals seeking information to fill out an online form. You can find out more at EFF.org. Uber and Lyft are teaming up to oppose the FBI's move to exempt biometric data from privacy protection under the Privacy Act. The two companies sent a joint letter to the FBI last week asking the agency for 30 days to respond to the FBI's plans. Privacy Act rules generally require that people be notified when their information is in a government system so that they can determine whether that information is accurate. But the FBI wants biometric data, fingerprints, iris scans, photographs, and things like that to be exempt from this requirement. Uber and Lyft don't want to be burdened by onerous background check requirements to maintain what they say is a flawed FBI database that is inferior to the company's own background check practices. RT.com has full coverage. Motherboard had a piece last week discussing how the Pentagon's cybersecurity practices have changed over the last decade. The answer? Not much. That's at motherboard.vice.com. Jesse Jackson wrote an op-ed piece in USA Today saying the FCC's proposed set-top box rules would harm minority-owned channels like Revolt, which is owned by Sean Combs. Jackson cited a letter signed by 50 Congressional Black Caucus members calling on the FCC to conduct studies before adopting new set-top box rules. That's at USA Today. A coalition of education advocates, including the American Association of School Libraries, Consumer Federation of America, and other groups, are petitioning the Obama administration to do a better job at protecting student data. Citing several examples of data breaches at large universities, such as the University of Maryland, UC Berkeley, and Indiana University, the groups are petitioning the Department of Education to establish new rules in the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, that do a better job at encryption, enhancing privacy, and notifying students when their data have been breached. You can get full coverage on this from Valerie Strauss at The Washington Post. Finally, the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy's Lynn Overman, a former assistant defender who now leads the White House Police Data Initiative, spoke at a Computing Community Consortium public workshop last week, calling for policymakers and technologists to develop better ways to use digital tools to curb America's mass incarceration rates. You can find out more about that at govtech.com. Stay with us. For Washington Tech Policy Podcast listeners, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. You can listen at the gym, in the car, or on your morning run. How about Ask Gary V, one entrepreneur's take on leadership, social media, and self-awareness by Gary Vaynerchuk. You can download Ask Gary V free by trying audible.com. Sign up for your free audiobook and 30-day trial today at washingtech.com/book. My guest today is Ximena Hartsock, co-founder and president of Phone to Action. Phone to Action's digital grassroots platform makes it easy for your organization to attract and engage supporters. Social media, calling, and email advocacy tools connect supporters to elected officials at every level, from city council to federal delegations, as well as to civic programs. Ximena is an advocate at heart and has been involved in social advocacy campaigns since she was 11. Prior to co-founding Phone to Action, she managed membership and outreach for a national advocacy organization where she ran hundreds of campaigns across the U.S. She has also held numerous leadership positions in Washington, D.C., including spending time as a principal, assistant superintendent, and agency director. In 2009, she was appointed to the executive cabinet of D.C. Mayor Fenty. She has a doctorate in policy studies from the George Washington University, and she was born and raised in Santiago, Chile. Please welcome Ximena Hartsock. Ximena, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Today, once again, we're going to talk about marketing and how you can take your organization beyond the substantive to really building an effective and powerful campaign that reaches your audience. Katya Schroeder joined me on episode 37 with the overview and revealed a few tactics. And way back on episode number 5, Shayna Glickfield explained how the policy pros do it here in D.C. And now we're going to turn it over to Ximena, whose specialty is mobile and really making mobile a central part of your campaigns. So Ximena, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
You have a very interesting background. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you ended up where you are.
Yes, well, I am originally from Santiago, Chile, and I came to the United States to complete education. So I did a couple of graduate programs at GW and Georgetown, and I started in a career in an education path. So I was a school principal, and then I was assistant superintendent of instruction, and I had a series of jobs after that led me to advocacy. But they led me to advocacy in a very not common way. So I was on the other side of government. I was one of those government officials that received lots of communications from parents and later on from constituents about issues with different aspects of the administration of a city. I was the director of Parks and Recreation, so I will get letters and calls from neighbors asking questions about the recreation centers or the pools or the programs that the neighborhoods had. And so I had lots of experience, years of experience on dealing with constituents as a government official. And then in 2010, I moved to California to run the National Membership and Legislative Advocacy Department for a national advocacy group. And in that job, I had to travel from state to state talking to people about the different legislations that were in place regarding education and encouraging them to contact their elected officials. And what I realized, being on the other side, was that connecting with government is not as easy as it should be, and that technology could help and become a bridge between people and their lawmakers. So that's how the idea for Phone to Action, that's where it was born, and it really was looking for a solution to a real problem.
And do you miss working in government?
I do in ways. So one of the important aspects of being in government that we forget is that you have the ability to improve the lives of people. And there is lots of responsibility that come with being a decision maker. And we often see the negative side of the legislative and regulatory process, but not just legislators, but also government officials have the power to address a lot of problems. So I do miss that opportunity to fix day-to-day problems that people may have.
And so what do you think is the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome on your way towards building a successful company?
Building a company is very, very difficult. 99% of startups die. And if you look at the trajectory of the technology companies in the United States, most of them are not in this area. As we know, Silicon Valley continues to be the place where most technology company flourishes. That's what Twitter is, that's what Facebook, and you name it, that's what where Apple was born. And so there is a reason for that. And the reason in general is because there is an ecosystem that is prepared to work in this very fast-paced environment, or this is very fast-paced, I will say, rhythm that technology companies have to have to actually be able to turn the corner, how we say. And there's plenty of obstacles. So one of them really is to be a woman, just a woman alone, and especially, I'm a Hispanic woman. Most venture capital firms are not used to deal with people of color, and they're less used to deal with women. And so, in just having conversations with investors, that's one obstacle that is going to be there. I mean, I have an accent, my accent alone is also a second obstacle. It can be a distraction. Sometimes you're trying to explain something that without an accent will be much easier to understand for an investor. And that's a barrier that is important to overcome, because eventually if you have a fruitful company and you are creating jobs, the numbers will speak by itself. And that's what has happened to our company. Our numbers are great. We have been able to create a company that has tremendous potential. We are creating jobs. We are growing at the 15% rate a year. We're only 3 years old, and we already have, we're profitable, and we have a revenue that is increasing. Our monthly recurring revenue is very high for a company of our trajectory. And, we've been able to, I wouldn't say we're successful, but I will say that, because I will never say you're successful. I think that, you're always working towards success. But I will say that we have been able to create a company that is very healthy financially, that is growing really, really fast, that is producing leading technology for civic engagement. We are also one of the pioneers, if not the pioneer, on creating an advocacy suite that organizations can use for employee advocacy as well as just for general advocacy. And it's also a communications platform with a very heavy, very robust social media component. So there are plenty of obstacles out there that we have, overcome and will continue to overcome. But what pushes through and what keep us very encouraged and positive is that our tools are one, if not the leading tool in the market for civic engagement.
Wow. And what do you say are the key pain points facing companies and advocacy organizations as they struggle to adapt to using mobile outreach in their campaigns?
One of the biggest obstacles is that the term itself, advocacy, is often misunderstood with politics. Lots of people come to advocacy thinking you work with advocacy campaigns and with advocacy leaders in the same way that you run a political campaign. And there are some things in common, but generally they are very different. And so you will see in the field, not only tools, technology tools and programmatic tools, but also people who use strategies, try to use the same strategies from political campaigns to advocacy, and those don't work because advocacy is a long-term relationship with people, folks, everyone. We all care about something. Electing someone for a position, electing a president, electing a governor is a one-time shot. You elect that person and that's the end of that. But advocating for climate change, advocating for equity is a long-time effort. It's a life effort at times. And that's why it's very important that not only the people, but also the technologies that are created for advocacy are created specifically for this field. So one of the pain points is that. The second pinpoint I will say is that it has been a little bit of a learning curve around mobile. So if you look at the data 3-4 years ago, the projections for mobile acquisition, especially for low income groups, were a lot lower than now. And the expectation was that we will hit these numbers in 2020, and it's 2016, and we have, we are already in the over 80% of mobile acquisition in the country. And those numbers are growing up, and those numbers are the highest among minorities. And because we were not prepared for that, we have not created technologies that are necessarily the most savvy in terms of dealing with all kinds of groups that are using mobile technology today. So if you look at mobile platforms, even though they are responsive, if you have a website and it looks responsive on a mobile phone, not necessarily is speaking to all the people that use mobile technology. So you see a lot of user cases that are, that have nothing to do with technology, that have to do with simple things that are just not sensitive to that, like the font size. If you are over 55, you may need a font size that is a little bit larger for things. And sometimes it's not very intuitive for people what they have to do to increase that font on different types of applications. And the lots of the technologies have been created for the younger generations. You have a lot of dating apps and the snapshots of the world, but all of the senior population is not necessarily having the same abundance of mobile applications that are helpful to them. So I think the pain points are several, but they're all very much related to the fact that mobile is king today. The mobile technology is growing tremendously fast. Is becoming the usage. Nobody can live without a cell phone today. Most people have 2-3 mobile devices at home. We have more mobile devices than people in the world, and we're sort of catching up with that. It almost feels like technology force itself, and then all of the applications and the programmatic piece have followed.
All right. Now, Ximena, give us a little bit of those insider tips for everybody. What are some key recommendations you'd make to organizational leaders seeking to make their campaigns more effective, or at least less clunky and old school?
To start with mobile, every single campaign must be mobile responsive. That means it has to look great on a mobile device of every kind, but also needs to be functional in every mobile device. That's number one. Number two, people today have very short attention span. And so you need graphics, you need video, you need short video. In the past, we used to do those 3-minute videos. Today, 30 seconds, and that's a lot. Number four, the content has to be written for different audiences, because in the past we could just write to the average citizen. We could guesstimate who was looking at our campaigns. Today we don't. There are climate change advocates of every age, every color, every zip code, every cultural background. Same with education, same with health. People care about issues, and they're advocating about those issues. People are more vocal today, especially digitally, than ever before. And so if you are trying to run a campaign and your campaign is run for the field only, if you're only preparing a campaign for people that are on their feet, knocking doors or talking to legislators one-on-one, that campaign alone is not going to do it. You also have to create campaigns for the masses, but in a diversified way. So whoever touches that campaign understands what you're trying to say. In other words, you have to meet your advocates where they are. And they're going to be on social media, they're going to be on email, they may be on the phone, they may be on text message, and the same with lawmakers. Lawmakers don't respond any longer just to email. They're receiving thousands and thousands of emails. But where are they besides email? Are they on Twitter? Yes, Cory Booker, Tim Scott, they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook. Many of them are on Snapchat. And so the most important part of creating campaigns today, for anyone, organizational leaders, managers, any advocate, is that you must identify what your audience is generally, but you have to diversify the way that you're trying to talk to them.
Are you on Snapchat?
Yes.
What's your username? I'm mad at you right now.
It's Ximena Lynn.
Okay, because do you use the filters?
I use the filters.
Because I find Snapchat's a lot of fun, but it's hard to take. It's hard for me to be serious on it.
Correct.
So maybe it's not for Washington people.
I think we are learning every day. Every day is something new about social media or new media. Every day. We don't know what the future holds in that regard. We see the stats and the number of users going to Snapchat that increases every day. But there are others. There are other technologies that are coming up. And if you look at the way that companies and organizations communicate within the company members. So, for example, at Phone to Action, we use a variety of apps for communications. We use Slack. Have you heard about Slack?
I have. Yes, so I haven't used it yet, but I have heard of it because my huge team. I need a tool for my huge team of one.
We use Slack. We use Intercom to talk to clients, and it's a wonderful system, a chatting system for customer service. And we use Jira for tickets. We use a variety of apps. So I think really the lesson there is that it's not just social media. It's not just one thing or another. It's what type of tool exists out there that can address a need, and in this case, a communicational need. And for advocacy, all of those tools have to meet the advocate where they are.
Yeah, and that's what everyone's been saying, that I've been hearing a lot from some of my other guests, is that you really have to tailor your language for each platform. And the best way to figure it out, I guess, is by doing, by engaging. I'll tell you, I try to do Twitter, and I see people who respond, and I see them that they're responding to what people are posting, but most of the time I have no idea how to respond, so I end up just pushing stuff out. And I know that's not how you're supposed to use it, but it's getting to the point now where I feel like you really have to master those different languages across those different platforms.
Twitter is interesting because Twitter started as a very personal tool where people were actually talking to each other. But today, you see agencies, you see organizations, you see trolls too, and it has become also a very good channel for media to broadcast information. So it lost a little bit of that personal feel, but for advocacy, it's new. And so connecting an advocate with a legislator via Twitter is extremely effective, because it's a public forum. The same with Facebook. We've seen campaigns really flourish on social media in a way that we never seen before via email.
And who have been some of your biggest influences, Ximena, as you've built your business, or really throughout your career? Who are those key people who have really given you the insights to keep going?
So I'm a big fan of lots of people out there. Like my father was a very hardworking man, and he, was a role model for me ever. But I'm also a big fan of some of the traditional figures that a lot of us probably admire. I mean, one of them is Steve Jobs. I think what Steve Jobs did, it was that he, besides everything else that we know, is that he was able to navigate his company from the leadership position, from that CEO seat, all the way down to the designer seat. He was someone that was very much involved in a lot of the decisions that sometimes leaders are not involved. He cared about the details. He cared about the color of things. He didn't take anything. He double-checked on things. He wanted to verify that things were going to happen his way. And I am a little bit of the same way. So I feel that attention to detail is very important. I think that sometimes the small things are more, they have a bigger impact than the aspects that we may think are the most important. Sometimes I think you spend a lot of time on many things and then you forget about a few details and you lost everything. And so I believe tremendously in the importance of attention to detail. I also admire the way that Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg have collaborated together to take a company that has been gone through so much scrutiny over time. I think lots of people expected this company to at some point faded away. They expected with the snapshot, for them to go away. And I think what Mark has done is that he reinvented himself as a leader to reinvent Facebook. And not only with the acquisitions of WhatsApp and other tools that he had bought, but also with the way that he has identified talent for his company. You can see how he has grown as a leader, and he understands that he has to surround himself with the right talent to grow. For example, Sheryl, having her as a CEO, he said publicly that she is a role model for him. He has also Tim Campos, his CIO, who is also a role model in itself, to run information technology for Facebook. And he has created an enormous amount of programs that are helpful to the development community locally and overseas. The internet.org program to give access to internet to communities overseas that do not have access otherwise. The Free Basics program that comes with that. The Facebook Startup program that allows for developers that do not have resources to get access to other technologies. We are a partner with Facebook for that program, and Phone to Action is accessible overseas to thousands of developers that may not have the resources to get access to an API like ours, and we do it through the Facebook program. So I have a lot of admiration for Mark for what he's done with Facebook.
And what's one piece of advice you'd give to entrepreneurs more generally, particularly those located here in the DC metro area?
I would say lots of people look at Silicon Valley for all of the answers with technology, and sometimes that can be very, very misleading and in a way maybe harmful. We have something special here. We're close to government. We have a tremendous number of embassies. We have people from all over the world. We have so much that is unique to us. And what we have to do is play to our advantages, our resources, and not try to copycat what we don't have. If you look at the companies that deal with government that are locally are the leading companies in the world, if not just in the U.S. And so I think that we have to value what we have. And the second thing is that often we also have these ideas about who or how is supposed to be the leader of a technology company. Is supposed to look in a certain way. We expect them to all come from the same schools, from Harvard, from Stanford, to be a computer science major, etc. But being a programmer is not the same as being a technology founder. And you can work in a technology company with or without tech skills. Technology is a vehicle to solve problems. And so I think my advice is to really try to identify the problems that you're trying to solve, and to identify solutions for them in a simple way. Don't overcomplicate yourself with the technology. The technology will come. But if you don't identify a real problem and you don't have passion for the solution that you have for that problem, then it doesn't matter anything else, because it's gonna fall apart eventually, probably anyway. Like I said, Phone to Action came as a solution for a real problem, and we identify the technologies to become part of that solution. It wasn't an intent to create a company or anything like that. So it is all, at the end of the day, it's all about solving a problem.
Yeah, and it's we really need to. What's the best way to solve problems? I mean, I kind of look around and I see annoyances in my day to day, and I've been really struggling with this issue of solving a problem. What do you think are the best practices for really sort of identifying problems and figuring out what those problems are?
We all have stories in our lives that are the problems or the solution to the problem, or both. And all we have to do is look back into our personal stories. Phone to action, the idea for Phone to Action came when I was driving. I was driving from Sacramento to San Francisco. I was on the highway, and I was very concerned about the lack of mobile technologies for advocacy. And I thought, I was driving and I heard this GPS. Siri actually was talking to me. And I said, well, why couldn't we use GPS technology to match people with their lawmakers? So initially, I was thinking about location. I wasn't thinking about matching, the residence of the person with the lawmaker, but I thought GPS could be that. And it came just from, from having a moment of creativity. So I think what we have to do is look more into ourselves, because we are creative human beings, and it will come to us. I also think that we do best when we are in survival mode. Human beings, if you put somebody in a situation of danger, that person is going to come up with solution much faster. So I think it's kind of silly that we have all of these dating apps when we have so many important problems out there without solutions. I think we're looking in the wrong places. And it's not about creating a cool technology. It's actually about creating something that can be helpful to someone. And that's actually probably easier, because we do have so many problems out there. So I think that instead looking for solutions that are cool, what we need to look is for the problems that exist, and then try to find those solutions.
Well, Ximena, it's been an absolute privilege having you on the show. So thank you once again for joining me. And I just want to ask you a few more questions, and then we'll close. Sound like a plan?
Yes.
All right. On this podcast, we like to talk about policy and entrepreneurship, but also about what makes successful people like you tick. Tell us, Ximena, what are some habits, tactics, and apps that you use every day to stay on top of your game?
I work harder probably than lots of people may do. I work 16, 17 hours a day. I have been doing this for a long time now. So I can sleep 4 hours and I do well. Not everybody can do that. I do that for two reasons. One of them is because English is not my first language. And so I know I have to try and work harder, because that's an obstacle I have there. And the second thing is because I sometimes feel that you cannot get everything done during those 8-10 hours. That's not enough for me to do everything that I have to do, because it's not just about the company that in my case I'm building. It's also about everything else that entails. If you're, for me, I'm in this conversation with you. I go to events, I volunteer for other things, I go to conferences, and so to fit all of that and be on top of the game, the hours of the day don't do. When people think work smart, I don't know. I don't understand exactly what that means, because to me, the outcome is always going to be equal to the input. If you work 8 hours and you do very, very good work, the max that you can get out of that is maybe 10. If you work 10, you can get out 12. So the more you work, the more you get out. Now, obviously, if you are more strategic, you can do better with less, but still the number of hours for me matter. The second thing, I read everything that I can. I watch shows. I don't discriminate between what it could be an intellectual show or not. I watch and read and attend everything that I can that I find interesting. And I also attend things that I don't find interesting. And I force myself to watch them and do them, because that's the way to learn. Technology was a new field for me. And it was very interesting to come to this and see that I didn't know so much. And so it's super exciting. Every single thing that I learn every day is really exciting, but that requires a lot of work. And so you have to be willing to put those hours, and you have to be willing to change the things that, may not be the most effective. And the last thing is that every career that I had, I learned something. I was an educator. I learned how to run meetings with parents. Then when I was the director of Parks and Rec, I learned how to build, recreation centers and pools. And those construction skills helped me a lot when we moved from offices, because I was able to work with vendors. So lots of people think, okay, if you go to technology, you need to know how to program. No, you can hire good engineers. But what I do, at least, and what I suggest that others do, pick all of those skills that you have. Understand, identify what you do best. And do that for your company. And what you do less than best, identify people that can do it better than you and surround yourself from that kind of talent. And anything can happen after that. You can do anything.
And tell us the name of one of those books that you read recently that you want to recommend to everyone you meet.
I learned a couple of books that have been helpful to me at Schools That Learn by Peter Segne and The 5 Disciplines by Peter Segne. The two books are sort of, they connect with one another, and they provide the disciplines that people can have to build high-performing teams and learning organizations, which are organizations that evolve and transform and grow. And those disciplines are in those books. And that's the first one. When I started at Phone to Action, I learned Ninja Innovation, which is a book written by Gary Shapiro that gives a very good course. It's a crash course on consumer electronics. And so it shows the path that we have had in the past years with the technologies that we use, going from taking pictures with a camera to a digital camera to taking pictures with the phone. All of this path is right there in the book. There are 20 to 30 years of history. Very helpful.
You've been in the presence of a genius insider, so I hope you were listening very carefully. Ximena, thank you so much for joining me. Do you have any final ideas you'd like to leave with the audience before we close? And where can folks find you online?
On the first one, today we are in a moment of time. We are in such a special time where anyone can be an entrepreneur. All you need today is a computer and access to the internet. 20 years ago, to become an entrepreneur, there were many obstacles you had to go through. Today, you can go to a coffee shop and you can open your business incorporated. You can create an app. You can use a tremendous and large number of APIs to build your technologies. You do not need to build everything from scratch. And there is a community out there that can do this with you. Today, being an entrepreneur is cool. It's cool. 20 years ago, it wasn't that cool. You say you're an entrepreneur, people will be like, yeah, come and speak with us. They invite you to shows like this. So this is the time to do it. I will say for anyone that has a student in high school or middle school, encourage your child to explore a career in STEM, science and technology, because that is the future. Almost every problem is going to have a solution that is scientific or has a technology aspect to it. And if we don't educate our kids, we are going to have to compete with countries overseas that are already a little bit ahead of us, and that are our kids are going to they're going to lose jobs for them. So we have to prepare them for their own sake, but also for our own sake. And lastly, I will say that because of what I said about that, we are in such a special moment where we can become entrepreneurs. There is tremendous responsibility that we all have to work together in addressing the policy issues that stop us from continuing to make advances in many ways. Because innovation is happening now it's so fast, because we're identifying new solutions for problems every day. Technology is flying. policy is not. We have outdated regulations, outdated legislations that are clashing with policy. That's why you see the ride-sharing economy out there fighting for opportunities. You see licenses for special gyms that are not getting approved because those gyms didn't exist 20 years ago. You see a variety of issues right now that are, people are fighting for. So what I will suggest, my call to action here is that we cannot do anything if we don't have an ecosystem, a legislative and regulatory ecosystem that is healthy, that is positive for entrepreneurship, that is helping communities to do better. And so we have to be vocal about the issues that we care about, even if we don't agree. We must be vocal. Apathy is not a good thing, and we have to continue working together for a better community and for a better future for our kids. My Twitter handle is Ximena Hartsock, Ximena Hartsock, and you can find me also at Medium, at the Phone to Action page in Medium for the blogs that I write, and at phonetoaction.com for any other information about the company and also all of the wonderful efforts that we have for issue campaigns across the world.
And you've been listening to Ximena Hartsock, co-founder and president of Phone to Action. Phone to Action's digital grassroots platform makes it easy for your organization to attract and engage supporters. Social media calling and email advocacy tools connect supporters to elected officials at every level, from city council to federal delegations, as well as to civic programs. Ximena, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
That concludes episode 43 of the podcast. Thanks so much to all of you for listening. And be sure and head over to iTunes and give the show a ratings and review. It'll take you 10 seconds tops. Thanks again to all of you for listening, and I will see you back here next week. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Washing Tech Policy Podcast. You've been briefed.